According to Scrum Guide, the increment is the sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint and the value of the increments of all previous sprints. It is a step toward a vision to relax. There is another one called the sprint burndown chart. It is a graphical way of showing how much work is remaining in the sprint, typically in terms of task hours. A sprint burndown or burn-up chart is not an official Scrum artifact, but many teams use it to communicate and track progress toward the sprint goal during the sprint. It is typically updated at the daily Scrum. Moving on, let's explore the Scrum events, which are often referred to as Scrum ceremonies. Prescribed events are used in Scrum to create regularity and transparency in the organization. All events are time-boxed events, which means that every event has a maximum duration. You might be wondering what exactly is a sprint, right? Let me answer that for you. The sprint is a time box of 1 month or less during which the team produces a potentially shippable product increment. Sprints have consistent durations throughout a development cycle, and a new sprint starts immediately after the conclusion of the previous sprint. Scrum defines 4 events, sometimes called ceremonies, that occur inside each sprint: sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. Let us explore what these events are one by one. Sprint planning meeting. During sprint planning, the entire Scrum team collaborates and discusses the work to be performed in the sprint. The Scrum Master ensures that the event takes place and that attendants understand its purpose. Sprint planning typically answers 2 questions. What needs to be achieved in the upcoming sprint? How the team will successfully deliver the identified product backlog items as part of a potentially shippable product increment. Daily Scrum, daily stand-up. The daily Scrum is a 15-minute time-boxed event for the development team. As the name goes, this meeting takes place every day during a sprint. The development team uses the daily to assess its progress toward completing the work in the sprint backlog. Sprint review. A sprint review is held at the end of the sprint to inspect the product increment and update the product backlog if needed. During the sprint review, the Scrum team and stakeholders collaborate about what was done in the sprint. Based on the feedback, they update the product backlog as needed. So, the result of the sprint review is a revised product backlog that defines the probable product backlog items for the next sprint. Sprint retrospective. During the sprint retrospective, the team reflects upon how things went during the previous sprint going forward. The sprint retrospective occurs after the sprint review and prior to the next sprint planning. While sprint reviews focus on the product, sprint retrospectives focus on the process. So, now you guys have an idea of what Scrum is, the people, artifacts, and events involved in the Scrum process. Let us now see how a typical sprint life cycle looks like in Scrum and how Scrum works in general. At its core, Scrum is a framework that allows development teams the flexibility to respond to changing situations. The Scrum process consists of a series of sprints, where the end result is a potentially shippable product increment. Step 1. The Scrum process starts with a backlog. The product owner creates a product backlog, which is a list of specifications from the client or end users. Using input from all the stakeholders, which essentially means anyone who has an interest in the results of your project, all the requirements are entered into the backlog as user stories. Each story is then broken down into tasks that are required to achieve the goal, and these tasks are then prioritized. Step 2. After the backlog is finalized, the product owner and development team conduct sprint planning. During sprint planning, the team pulls a small chunk from the top of product backlog items to work on during the sprint. That chunk becomes the sprint backlog. As the sprint progresses, the development team performs the work necessary to deliver the selected product backlog items. Step 3. Work in a daily Scrum. Along the way, the Scrum Master helps the Scrum team perform at their highest level and make smooth progress toward their sprint goal. 4. At the end of each sprint, the development team delivers a functioning piece of the product to show for their work. The development team holds a sprint review to demonstrate what they have accomplished during the sprint. Any stakeholders, senior managers, and other affected departments such as marketing, customer support, and others are invited to attend and give feedback. Based on the feedback from the internal as well as external stakeholders, the product backlog is updated. Step 5. After the sprint review, the team gathers for a sprint retrospective to discuss what went right or wrong and areas for improvements for further sprints. They make tangible plans for how to improve their own process, tools, and relationships. Unlike in the sprint review, where the focus is on the product. In sprint retrospectives, the focus is on the process. Step 6. As the next sprint begins, the team chooses another chunk of the product backlog and begins working again. Beyond the sprint, the cycle repeats until enough items in the product backlog have been completed, the budget is depleted, or a deadline arrives. The most valuable work has been completed by the time the project ends. So, this is how a typical Scrum process looks like. Essentially, the Scrum framework presents practices to break down complex problems using simple methods. It quickly rose to fame because of its simplistic brilliance and applicability to all kinds of work, not just software development. So, has this spiked your interest? Are you planning to be a Scrum Master? We can help. At Invensys Learning, we provide Scrum Alliance accredited certified Scrum Master training worldwide. Enroll now and take the next step in your pursuit to master Agile. For more updates on trending technologies, subscribe to Invensys Learning YouTube channel. Also, if you have any queries, share them with us in the comments section.